What's up, everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk. Thank you for tuning in. I know you could be doing a million other things, so I appreciate you joining this video, this channel, Rams Talk. You can also find me on Instagram at LA Rams Talk. A lot of people DM me there, so you can get some quick hits on Instagram. Twitter at Real LA Rams Talk, the Flick Chat app, and Fan Network. So, yeah, we got a big one going this week against Tampa Bay. This is, in my opinion, I mean, every game you go, like the Bills game was the game of the year, the Cowboys game was the game of the year, the Seattle game was the game of the year, the Bears game was the game of the, it's at that time the game is always the most important game, unless maybe it's the Giants or the Washington football team or something like that. But this, if you at this point in the season, these arguably are the two best teams in the NFC. Now, you can say the Saints, you can say the Packers are in there, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, but really, the way these two teams are built, either one of these teams could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, right? So this is a huge game, and this is also the seeding for the playoffs. This game determines a lot of the seeding moving forward, so it is epic on so many levels. And before I get into that, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. If you're a Rams fan and you're seeing this for the first time, please jump on board. A lot of people have subscribed recently, so thank you so much to everyone who's been watching ever since and even came on board recently. I really appreciate it. I'm just happy to be talking Rams with y'all. So the Rams are 16-9 against the Tampa Bay Bucs. We have a winning record against them, even though we got blown out last year. I guess we were 16-8 going into last year's game. And all I got to say, I mean, I know this is the Bucs. I know this is an NFC conference opponent, NFC South. But to me, a lot of people say revenge is a dish best served cold. At this point, revenge is a dish that's just served at all. Is best when it's served at all. And I'm talking about Tom Brady, right? So Tom Brady has broken our hearts in two of the biggest games in Rams franchise history. And now he's coming. It's not the Patriots, not Belichick. We get them later in the year. But it would be so sweet to beat Tom Brady, to knock him down a peg. I mean, this game might not amount for anything, really. But, the teams will most likely still make the playoffs. They could meet later in the playoffs, be two totally different teams. Andrew Whitworth might be back. Who knows, right? But Tom Brady, the wheel of karma has not come back around to him in terms of the Rams. We are not done with Tom Brady. So to me, personally, it's just time to just a shot across the bow of the NFC West, and Tom Brady needs to go down. So I don't care if it's taken 20 years. It's time to beat Tom freaking Brady in a game of this magnitude. So that's really what I'm looking at. I'm looking at it's time to get them. And, we said, like I said, there's a lot of people thought that the Seattle game was the toughest matchup of the year. I think it was. But the thing about Seattle, the difference between Seattle and Tampa Bay is Seattle didn't have Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde, and their secondary was banged up and out. And they're missing their center. So it really wasn't, the Seattle team we played wasn't really the A-list Seattle team. Tampa Bay doesn't really have any injuries. Like, everyone's there. Ali Marpet is back this week. So, they have their offensive line intact. Their secondary is intact. Their running back's intact. So, their running game is intact. It's all there. So, this is both teams pretty much firing on all cylinders minus the Rams' injuries, which I'll get to in a minute. One quick thing, the COVID scare. Yeah, when we heard about a player tested positive, I'm sure everyone's first reaction is, oh, please not AD, Jalen Ramsey, Jared Goff, right? You selfishly, that's what you think. At the end of the day, you just want whoever it is to be fine and to be asymptomatic and escape COVID without any serious health repercussions. But when you found out it was practice squad players, everyone took a sigh of relief and just moved on with their life. It's okay, cool. That didn't even happen. It's kind of weird how that happens. But, practice squad guys, we hope you're okay. You're still a Ram. You're still on the Rams, in the Rams organization. So we hope you guys get better. Now, before I filmed this, I went back and watched last year's Rams-Bucs game, and I remember that game, and that was Jared Goff, the gunslinger, over 500 yards, 3 interceptions, a fumble, losing it, 55-40. I mean, it was a nuts game, and I just went back and watched the highlights, and I'd recommend, if you have time, YouTube, Rams-Bucs 2019 game, watch the full highlights. It's kind of cool because there's a game being played in front of fans. It's at the Coliseum, so it kind of brings back that life. But they're wearing the white uniforms, kind of cool. And the things that kind of stood out in that game were Greg Zuerlein hitting a 58-yarder and a 44-yarder. And I swear, going into free agency this past offseason, myself and so many people were like, we gotta re-sign Greg Zuerlein. And I'm going to keep harping on this, guys. I'm not going to let this go because this was stupid. And Les Snead's made a lot of great moves, but this was stupid. And we're like, we got to re-sign Greg Zuerlein. Everyone was saying we got to do it. And it's kind of a given. We're going to do it, right? It's Greg the Leg. And we don't. And then this whole narrative comes out like, well, he wasn't good in the 40 and up range. He was declining in the 40 and up range. And that narrative was not around really prior to him leaving the Rams. It kind of became like a justification, like we have to make sense of this and find a reason why. Oh yeah, he wasn't good at 40 plus last year. But in that game, he hit a 58-yarder and a 44-yarder. And typically when you have Greg Zuerlein, as a Rams fan, you guys know every time he goes out there, like every time you're in range, you're like, oh, are we in Greg Zuerlein range? Because you know there's a shot every time he's kicking. And Sean McVay had a very candid response to when asked about Greg Zuerlein and the kicking woes in general. And he said, sometimes you don't realize how good you have it until it's gone. He said that. The Rams are lamenting over letting Greg Zuerlein go. And I don't care what anyone says about he was declining in the 40 on up range. Please. How many kickers are Greg Zuerlein capable? And like this year, he's been good. He's better this year than he was last year. Players have down seasons. The year before that, when he kicked those field goals against the Saints, he had a good year. The year before that, before he got injured, he had a good year. He was leading the NFL in scoring. He has one bad year, really, and everyone freaks out. Anyways, that's the end of my Greg Zuerlein rant. But just watching that hurt. That hurt. Because like, oh man, like we have guys that can't make 20-yarders. We have guys who get balls batted at the line of scrimmage. We have guys who can't make extra points. They're not even up there kicking 40-yarders. They're missing all the small chips. I mean, just ridiculous. Anyways, also interesting note about that game, Matt Gay. Matt Gay was on the Bucs last year, and he hit a 58-yarder in that game. So we have Matt Gay now. He probably won't be kicking this week. It'll be Austin McGinnis. So let's just cross our fingers and hope that Austin McGinnis can kick the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs and be competent with point after and regular, makeable field goals. So kind of crazy how that goes around. But one of Goff's interceptions in the game was on a 4th and 2. So whatever, it was like a punt. Todd Gurley had 2 touchdowns. There was a play where Mike Evans just burned Marcus Peters, like one of those classic Marcus Peters, one-on-one, no way in hell. And he gets burned on a bomb. And Mike Evans scores a touchdown. But then Marcus Peters had that pick 6 where he got clocked when he went into the end zone towards the end of the game. And at the very end of the game, the Rams were down by 8. And they were driving. It was 1st and 20 with just over a minute to go on like the 45, on Tampa Bay's 45. And Goff strip. It was one of those like weak Jared Goff turnovers in the pocket where he just barely gets touched and just loses it out of his hand. And Ndamukong Suh picks it up and runs back for a touchdown, right? So that was just, the whole game was Jared Goff ball security issues. Chris Godwin, 172 yards. Cooper Kupp, 164 yards. Robert Woods, 164. Kupp, 121. And the Rams, as a team, had 28 rushing yards. So, anyways, just a fun game to go back and watch, even though the Rams lost. But like the secondary was torched in that game. Torched. And then you look and you see Eric Weddle. You're like, oh God, Eric Weddle. He led the team in tackles, but Eric Weddle to me was always like the second guy making a tackle. He was never the dude like getting in there and making the hit. He was like kind of the guy who would wait for someone else. I think Eric Weddle's a great guy, but man, not good last year. And the second, I mean, like Jameis Winston picked us apart. That was just one of those waves. Like there was a couple games last year where our secondary defense just melted down. That was one of them. So, anyways, moving on. I think really the key to this game, if you want to boil it all down and it really makes sense, it's turnovers, right? If Jared Goff plays a clean game, the Rams are in this. If Jared Goff turns the ball over 2 times, I don't think you can give that to Tom Brady. You can't. The Rams can't give Tom Brady extra chances. So, and conversely, Tom Brady has to take care of the ball. Ronald Jones has to take care of the ball. So, but for the Rams, it's all about turnovers. If it's just a clean game and the running backs score, 3 touchdowns, and let's say Higbee catches a touchdown, and it's 280 yards from Goff, the Rams most likely win this game. So doesn't have to be spectacular, but he has to take care of the ball, which is going to be tough because their defense is really good. But I feel like Brandon Staley, this is his Super Bowl, his personal Super Bowl. He said he's been thinking of scheming against Tom Brady for like his entire life. And so this is it. This is Brandon Staley having to sit down and figure out Tom Brady and stymie Tom Brady. It's been done. Tom Brady doesn't throw for 400 yards every game. But Tom Brady is extremely smart. He'll take the passes that are there. He has tons of weapons. So he can pick and choose. So Staley has to confuse him, show him one look pre-snap, give another look post-snap, switch up his zone, different zone coverages, mix the man, put Jalen Ramsey. So Jalen Ramsey, everyone assumes is just going to play against Mike Evans, and I think that makes sense mainly because of the height. Kind of like DK Metcalf, it was all about the height. I feel Jalen Ramsey is the tallest cornerback we have, so it makes sense to put him on Mike Evans. But I think Jalen Ramsey, Mike Evans is a great matchup. Darius Williams, Chris Godwin's a great matchup. But the key in the secondary for me is going to be Antonio Brown and Troy Hill. If they match up. Who knows how we're going to move our cornerbacks and our secondary around to match up against their receivers. But that's going to be very interesting. Troy Hill versus AB is their third guy. And last week, all 3 of those big receivers, 8, Gronk 8, Bray 8, Rojo 8. So also their tight ends, they got Gronk and they've got Bray. So that's going to be our linebacker Kenny Young, Micah Kaiser, Jordan Fuller, John Johnson. This is all hands on deck in this game because this isn't like the Seahawks. The Seahawks had 2 guys that were top level. David Moore is all right. Olsen's all right. Disley's all right. But the drop off after Lockett and Metcalf compared to the drop off after Evans and Godwin is not even close. So Brandon Staley is gonna have his hands full, and Arians is a pretty good coach as well. So Arians and Brady, I think they're going to be scheming something, and Staley's obviously going to be scheming something back. But Tampa Bay also is at their best. Obviously, you always hear me say it's balance, balance, balance. The Rams need to be balanced, but Tampa Bay wants to be balanced. And, the games that they've lost this year, they lost twice to the Saints, they lost to the Bears. Their running game never got on track. But last week they blow out Carolina. It's because they ran for over 210 yards. Granted, 100 of those yards was on one run. You take that out. So basically last week, they were 37 rushing attempts for 210 yards because they also have Fournette. That's a 5.7 yard per carry. But if you take out that one rush for basically 100 yards, it averages out to 3 yards per carry. So they still would have run the ball over 100 yards, but it wouldn't have been prolific. That one run really says everything. And that's crazy because that game was 20-17 Tampa Bay with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter. Carolina punted down the ball on the 2-yard line. And then the first play, Rojo breaks off a 98-yard run. Then Carolina gets the ball back, throws interception, Tampa Bay goes down and scores. And then Carolina gets the ball back, goes for a fake punt, doesn't convert. Tampa Bay goes down and kicks a field goal. So Carolina on 3 series just like completely melted down. The defense for Tampa Bay stepped up, and that game turned right there. But we're not Carolina. So they beat Carolina twice. They beat the Broncos. So the Raiders and Green Bay are their big wins this year. They lost to the Saints twice, and they lost to the Bears. But they have beaten they beat one real good team, one good team, and then nothing else. It's kind of like the Rams. We beat Seattle. We beat Chicago. They did beat Chicago. So, maybe they look at the Chicago tape, the Saints tape, and see what those teams did. I mean, the 2 Saints games, they got blown, combined, they got blown. I think they scored 26 points combined, and the Saints scored 70-something points combined. So those are games you really want to look at to see what those teams did to take an advantage. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 23rd in the NFL in terms of rushing yards per game at about 103. The Rams are 8th in the NFL with 134 rushing yards per game. So as much as they had a great game last week, and they have Rojo, and they have Fournette, and they have a solid offensive line, the Rams are a more dedicated running team than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it shows throughout the season so far. In terms of pass, teams are pretty much identical in terms of passing yards per game. The Bucs are 9th with 264 yards per game, or Tom Brady is, and the Rams and Jared Goff are 11th with 261, so 3 fewer passing yards per game, but they're pretty much identical. The Rams are a better running team than Tampa Bay is, so that'll be interesting. And they have Todd Bowles. So on defense, we switched it around. It's Todd Bowles, who is a really, really good defensive coordinator, used to be the head coach of the Jets. Good fantasy team name for people back in the day, Smokin' Bowls. Just saying. And he's going to, that defense is pretty stacked. Their defensive line, they've got Sue. Their linebackers are great with their outside linebacker, Shaquille Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, and in the middle, Smith and Levante David. I'm totally spacing on one of the inside linebackers, but I think it's Smith. And Levante David is one of the best, probably top 3 linebackers, middle linebackers in all of football. I think he had an interception last year against the Rams. He's legit. He's not underrated anymore. When he came out of college, I think it was Nebraska, I was hoping the Rams would draft him. He slid way down. And Tampa Bay got a gem right there. But Levante David's been great. And yeah, God, I don't know why I'm spacing Smith on their middle linebacker, but he's really athletic. He's very aggressive and very quick, has a lot of good closing speed, very quick closing speed. And teams sometimes take advantage of that. But he is their leading tackler. And then in the secondary, you have, I think, I watched that Green Bay game, and Jamel Dean, he jumped around. He looked really good in that game. Carlton Davis' 4 interceptions. But the weak spot on their offense is, or defense is Sean Murphy Bunting. He's the nickel back. He's one of the lowest rated in football, and that's where Cooper Kupp is going to be lined up. So I look for Cooper Kupp just like last week, but I think Cooper Kupp this week should have a really big game because if you're looking for the weak spot in their secondary, that's the guy right there. But if you're looking at their defense with Shaquille Barrett off the edge, I think he led the NFL in sacks last year. He has 5 sacks and 28 pressures this year, which is second in the NFL, and he most likely will be going against Havenstein. But Havenstein has acquitted himself quite well this year, and I think, for the most part, he should be okay. I would let him go one-on-one, and I would slide the protections over towards Joe Noteboom, who's going to be matched up against Jason Pierre-Paul, who has 7.5 sacks this year. Now, Joe Noteboom, so let me just start this off. What have you in your life taken for granted? It could be something small, it could be something big. I moved to Germany. You know what I took for granted in the States was paying with a debit card everywhere. Here in Germany, it's like cash only, like everywhere. I took that for granted. I think we've taken how good our left tackle situation has been for granted over the last 3 years. Just over 3 years with Whitworth. We had Greg Robinson, who was a train wreck. We had one of the best left tackles the last 3 years, and now we have Joe Noteboom. Joe Noteboom was drafted in 2018 as, I think, the heir apparent to the left tackle position. But Whitworth he kind of pulled a Brett Favre and just kept playing and playing, when Aaron Rodgers was behind him. And so they're like, well, let's put him in somewhere because Whitworth is still here, so they put him in at guard. Didn't play so well at guard, but after a handful of games was injured for the rest of last year. Then he comes in this year, is playing guard, is doing okay. And then he gets injured for a couple games, loses his spot. But he's a natural tackle. And I feel like this is really his not his rookie year. I mean, he redshirted his whole rookie year, but this really is, I feel like, this 7 games coming up that he could play. This is it for Joe Noteboom. Not this is it if he doesn't do well, he's gone. But this is him playing tackle, left tackle, kind of why they drafted him 3 drafts ago. This is Joe Noteboom time. And we're going to really see if Joe Noteboom is the guy. And if Joe Noteboom doesn't have to be a top 5 guy, that's asking way too much. That's not being real. But Joe Noteboom, if he's a top 20 guy, if he's a top 30 guy, let's say top 30 guy, that's massive. That's huge, right? I just don't want him to be a top 80 guy, right? Because there's 2 tackles, I don't even think there's 80 tackles in the league. But Joe Noteboom, this is going to be something to really watch. I'm concerned, but I'm also hopeful because I think he will play better at tackle than he would have been at guard. He's more an athletic guy. He's not a ground and pound guy. And I could see Jason Pierre-Paul doing some bull rushing on him. So he's got to be nimble and he's got to hold his ground. And just to put some stats in perspective. So I mentioned he's second in, going back to Shaq Griffin. I say Shaquille Barrett. That was last week with the Seahawks. But with the 28 pressures for Barrett, that's second in the NFL. AD is 4th with 26 pressures, and Floyd is 12th. Leonard Floyd is 12th with 21. Now, Floyd against Tristan Wirfs, the rookie. Tristan Wirfs is a good player, and he's a solid rookie. Let's just see how the offensive line allocates personnel to Aaron Donald, because last week he was getting triple teamed, and when he's getting triple teamed, the other guys were able to come in, and they had these wide open one-on-ones, and they were hitting every time. So how much are they going to allocate to Aaron Donald for pass protection, and then how are the other guys going to take advantage? And you notice Aaron Donald was on the sideline for a little bit. He didn't have as many snaps as normal because he's going against 3 guys and he's still trying to get after the quarterback. So he was just, I think, gassed. But this is where Leonard Floyd against Wirfs, this is going to be a matchup because, Ali Marpet's a guard and Aaron Donald, and he's pretty good, and Kappa's in there, he's pretty good, and Pearson, and there's a bunch of guys that their offensive line is pretty solid, I feel. So this is going to be a tough matchup for our defensive ends, our outside linebackers, but also A'Shawn. I think A'Shawn, if they can really stop the run, because there's going to be a more concerted effort on Tampa Bay's front to establish the run with Rojo and with Fournette. So if we can at least clog some lanes and start making them one-dimensional, that's always the best way, because that's what Seattle was. Seattle was one-dimensional, and then our secondary and our linebackers could kind of sit back. And you saw what they did. They shut them down, and we rushed only 4, and we got them home. So that's going to be pretty interesting there, too. Now, when I was talking about the key to the game being turnovers, the Bucs are +5 on the season, and they have 17 takeaways. The Rams have 13 takeaways and are 0. They're differential. They're even. So the Buccaneers have been very opportunistic. They've created a lot of turnovers and takeaways. So like I said, it all is going to come down to turnovers. Even if they have 1 turnover, that's not going to be a backbreaker. But any more than that, and then you just can't give them more chances. So I think another thing, both teams haven't played particularly well in prime time, but this for the Rams playing on Monday Night Football. It doesn't, against Tom Brady and 7-3 team. It doesn't get any more prime time than this. And if the Rams can pull this game off and come out of this game and have an impressive performance on Monday Night Football, the national media, the national attention and spotlight is going to start shining on LA a little bit. So, and if they don't, then it could be, and if they lay an egg, it could be just like the Super Bowl, where we don't hear the end of it forever. So that's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game. The Bucs are number 1 in the NFL versus the run, and the Rams are number 1 in the NFL versus the pass. Something's gotta give. And in terms of our three-headed monster, I like to call that Cerebrus. A couple of you on Twitter have pointed that out, or even on Flick pointed Cerebrus. I think that's actually pretty good. And I think Akers and Hendo having the early down work and putting Brown in there for third down, because the cool thing about Brown, and I think some people mentioned this earlier in the season, is when you have him out there for a third down or whenever he's in the game, it kind of tips the hand of like, this is going to be a pass play because he's in there for pass protection. But you notice against Seattle, he had that key third down conversion where he leaked out, Goff hit him when the pressure came, and he kind of bobbled the ball, but ran and picked up the first down. So he has been great. And Malcolm Brown's a great pass catcher. He's kind of weird. He gets labeled as this downhill runner, which he is. He's great in the red zone when you're giving him, and he's busting through those 5-yard runs to get in the end zone. But he can catch the ball. I never see Malcolm Brown drop a ball or he's smart. Like, you just can always depend on Malcolm Brown. So I feel like Akers can break tackles. He's the best rookie at missed tackles and yards after contact. So he's been elusive. Darrell Henderson can make a cut or two and really pop through the line. So I think the Rams are also going to try and establish the run in this game, because it's not like you can pick on the secondary too much. So I think the Rams are really going to try and establish that balance. I think there's going to be a Higbee and Gerald Everett game as well. I feel like we can see a lot of those guys. Munt's going to get some reps. I mean, this is all hands on deck. Really excited to see what kind of schemes Brandon Staley throws on defense, what McVay is going to cook up on offense, is going to roll the pocket, get the ball out quickly, all these kind of things. So yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff. So I'm going to have a collaboration or two coming up this week because we have a few extra days, this being Monday Night Football and all coming up. So I'll get those posted over the weekend. But thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Let me know what you think in the comments. How you think this is going to turn out? Who do you think is going to step up for the Rams? What we needed to watch out for in terms of what Tampa Bay might be cooking up. I'm sure I missed a million things. I could talk for another half hour. But anyways, that's all I got. Brandon Staley, you can cue the music now. So yeah, you can watch any of my other videos somewhere over around here. Like I said, subscribe to the channel and let me know what you think. I really appreciate everyone, and as always, go Rams. Don't have my pen today. I'll just do this. Dropped it.